Siblings and sisters and brothers, welcome to Tuesdays for Nurture. I am your host, Reverend Dr. Chris Davies, and I'm so thrilled to be with you on this day and weekly. Tuesdays for Nurture is a webinar series where we faithfully focus on education for the people of God. We have topics from faith-filled politics to the interviews of key leaders to how-tos in congregational life, and the impacts of current realities on the life of the church will be featured. Today, we're talking about the impacts of the current United Church of Christ realities in the midst of an ongoing global pandemic as we look to the national gathering of our denomination, General Synod, which occurs every 2 years. I've got with me here today the Worship Director for Synod, Reverend Tracy Howe, and she's brought a team of folks to talk with us more carefully going forward in the ongoing work of General Synod. So without further ado, and with excitement to see all of you, welcome Reverend Tracy.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's good to be here. It's good to be with you all, beloveds. What a year. And I say that with the planning of General Synod Worship in mind. I have been working with some of the most creative, spiritually deep, compassionate people, and have grown so much in my understanding of what worship is and can be. And I am so grateful and so looking forward to worshiping with you all, now still in this virtual setting, but with you all, and what that means and what that can mean is still evolving as we continue to make that happen. So what we are doing this week, today and on Thursday, is coming together to tell you what that means. And today we have a group of people that have been working together, and on Thursday we have a group of people to explore how we have been keeping our commitments to accessibility, to faith formation, in the middle of this pandemic, and how we intend to make General Synod Worship happen in this historic moment, and as our denomination comes together for the first time in the virtual setting, and also hopefully get really excited because we have so many amazing people and artists working together. So before we introduce everybody, the format today, we also put together an open call for artists and musicians to submit works relevant to the theme, deeply rooted in love. And we have two artists that submitted songs with us today, Michele Hecht and Natalia Cerna. And we're going to give teasers. We don't want to do the full reveals today because we've integrated their good works, which have been arranged and recorded in different ways, into the programming of General Synod worship and cultural offerings throughout General Synod. But we're going to give you kind of teasers and let them talk about what they've offered. And we're going to open with Michele, and Natalia's going to close us out. And then we have some hopefully engaging conversation in the middle with some of the planning team. So before we introduce all the people, we're just going to jump into some of the music, and I want to introduce to you someone who's actually become a good colleague and working friend, Michele Hecht, because we've been able to collaborate on a few things now through the UCC Musicians Association, and she has written just a gorgeous piece that will be featured in the opening worship service at General Synod. Michele, I would love for you to introduce yourself and share a bit about what resonated with you about the General Synod theme and about your piece. And we're sharing a version that you actually directed of your piece, not the version that our music director has arranged. And so people will be able to hear this piece in its entirety, but go ahead and share a little bit about it, and then we'll let people see and hear this lovely setting.
Thank you so much, Tracy. I've enjoyed spending time with you, getting to know you through the Musicians Association, and thank you for all your support with that. I am the music director at First Congregational Church in Glen Ellen, Illinois, here in Chicagoland, where it's third winter today, a little bit of snow. And I'm also the president of the UCC Musicians Association. And I am honored and excited and delighted to have a piece of music that I composed be used and shared at General Synod. This is a really big moment for me personally, and I hope it will resonate with people who get to sing it and hear it. It is something that is very timely because it was inspired by me last March at the beginning of the pandemic, not being able to sleep, being worried, are we going to be able to have groceries? Are the stores going to close? Are we going to have the supply chain? I mean, so many unknowns at that point. It was really scary. And I was awake in the middle of the night and I was praying and asking God to bring me some peace and calm me down and get rooted. So I think the theme of this, I dedicated to all the choirs of the world who have been silenced during this pandemic. But I think I was really asking God to bring me peace, bring all of us peace, not only with the panic and the uncertainty of what was happening in our world, and it still is happening, but also the civil unrest and the justice issues that are still ongoing and seem to intensify during this pandemic. So that was the inspiration for this. I was just laying in bed and I was praying these words: bring us peace, bring us hope, send your silver light of angel's wings into the darkest night, because I was there in the middle of the night and I just wanted to see a glimmer. Let me know everything's going to be okay. So I hope that the words of this will resonate with people, whether they are choir members at their own churches who have not been able to sing as we want to sing, or just members of the congregation who miss singing or just need that sense of peace. And I wrote it with some practical applications in mind, knowing what my choir is capable of doing, and I wanted it to be singable by them. And so I used some techniques that I wanted to make sure it was very accessible. And I made a virtual choir out of that, which was my second attempt at doing a virtual choir. Now I've had a whole year's worth of experience making virtual choirs, and I've gotten better at it. But in the beginning, I thought, okay, well, I guess I need to videotape myself conducting, and we have to lay down a foundation track. And we created a video with my choir that we shared in worship and have shared online. And then just recently for the Musicians Association, we invited all of our members and any choir members of our members to participate in making a virtual choir that one of our board members, Keith Hampton, put together with his video editing skills. And that's what we're going to show you a little bit of a taste of today, but it's the same video of me last summer preparing my own choir. And, that has some pros and cons because, there's lots of pros, but one of the cons is it's just a fixed thing. It's exactly my interpretation of that day, and that's the way it's locked in at that moment. But we hope that, like I said, I hope it will resonate with people during Synod and beyond. And the choir video that you're going to see today of the UCC Musicians Association, it is going to be featured in our conference, which takes place just 2 days before the opening of General Synod. And we are going to share those resources with you today, so that you'll have links to check that out, because it's not just for musicians, pastors, and anyone of any denomination to attend. We have lots of different things that will be shared, and Reverend Dorhauer will be preaching at our worship. So very exciting for all of us. And now I think we were going to play the music for you to enjoy.
So beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that, Michele. And so our music director, Brian Johnson, is arranging that for our Synod vocal ensemble. Now we have a band, a Synod band and vocal ensemble made up of incredible people around the country. And then we did a call out for a virtual choir for Synod, and we received 300 volunteers. So we have 3 different pieces being arranged. So we'll be having a song in each of our 3 worship services at General Synod with a virtual choir. And I see that Amanda Udis-Kessler is on the chat, and she wrote an original piece that's being featured in our 3rd worship service. That's just incredible and tied in all of our sub-themes so masterfully. So I just want to give a shout out to that. We received over 24 original compositions when we did this call, and everything from Michele's beautiful choral work to like bluegrass music, and then to Natalia's piece, which we'll feature at the end. And Natalia has written this beautiful piece in her unique what I would call Borderlands style, cantautora style, and recorded her video for us from her home in Hermosillo, Mexico. And so we'll play that at the end of the webinar here. And so before we get started, we also, our video editor, now we've been working very hard to create worship services that still are grounded and rooted and not make it just a bunch of clips that we pull all over. So we have, we are gathering clips from all over the country at this very moment, from all over the country. But we have worship architects and this team, and we'll talk more about that. But we also have a masterful video editor and an artistic team that is weaving them together. And just this morning, our film team gave a 30-second clip of our first opening worship service. And every worship service has a elemental, a theological, and a contextual grounding. And so I will share, because we have the worship architects from the first opening worship service, which is grounded in soil and groundedness, interconnectedness, and also the contextual issues of rural issues and environmental issues. We'll watch the kind of the preview video for the worship service. Even the music that has been composed specifically for this worship service. So I invite us to come into gallery view, and let's meet the whole team that is with us today. Well, this isn't the whole team, but I have some of my dear colleagues. I cannot, here we are, yeah. Now, are we in gallery view for the people who are viewing now? Great. So I am Tracy Howe, she, her, Minister for Congregational Community Engagement at the national setting of the United Church of Christ, and so incredibly honored to be the worship director for the 33rd General Synod, taking over a tenure for the Minister for Worship and Gospel Arts, the Reverend Sue Blaine. Also with us, we have Reverend Piwa Landini and Jaquan Beecham, and all of you all will be able to introduce yourself as I've invited each of them to kind of share a bit about what it's been like for them to be on the Synod Worship planning team, and we're going to have a bit of a conversation here. And I'll just kind of bounce it over. I'll bounce it over to Piwa to start, and we'll kind of share a bit about what it's been like. And as you have questions, you can feel free to put those questions in the Q&A for us. The Q&A is going to be a better place to respond to questions than the chat bar, because the chat bar gets lost. And if you are viewing this webinar on YouTube at a later point in time also, then hopefully we are just able to respond to those live, and you don't even know that that's happening. We're just having the conversation and integrating. So YouTube is what I meant. All right, Piwa.
Good greetings, everybody. It's great to be here and be a part of this team. So just the theme, of like groundedness, and for me at least, when I approach this process, I actually would be walking around and like looking at root systems and looking at plants and really engaging just how miraculous, life that kind of emerges is, so like looking at like the conditions of the soil that allows seeds to take root, and then for those roots to grow and stretch and then have little, side roots that extend in different ways that eventually, right, becomes the plant that comes out of the ground. And as it continues to grow and it sways and it dances, which I did not know happened until, looking at plant life as it grows, but it dances as it grows and it follows, the sun and the wind and all the conditions, right, allow it to bloom and eventually fruit. And for me, I think this imagery was so beautiful in doing this work of being mindful of representation in this united and uniting denomination. I know this has been like, this pandemic mode has really stretched a lot of us, maybe not all of us feeling like we could dance in our growth. But certainly, it's required a lot of skill growing and learning, how we can do church, how we can be church in the season of physical distancing. But one of the biggest gifts, though, that I've seen in being able to gather in this way is that we really were able to like literally meet folk where they are and like getting to highlight the actual portions of our church that we don't often get to see. And we got to do it in a way that we couldn't bring with us to a physical location, as you saw the little teaser video there, like just the gorgeous parts of this country that some of us may never see in person, and some of the languages that we got to bring into the service, and just the practices and, the ways in which people ritualize their gathering in their particular settings. This format has allowed us to do that. And so I am extremely geeked to like see how it really has come together, with all the experts that Tracy has so wisely discerned and bringing this together, and the many pieces that I have yet to see and we'll get to experience together. But like it's been an amazing process and a journey for me, as an ordained minister in this denomination, as a member of the national staff, as a writer of this team, but really getting to get excited about this denomination over again, just getting to experience just how much we have to offer each other, the earth, and God, right? And so hopefully as you engage the worship services, you'll see the intentionality built into that, again, trying to be very mindful of, this opportunity that allows us to widen our welcome ever more in ways that, going to a physical location wouldn't allow us, so many people who couldn't have the time, money, or whatever else, the accessibility to travel, can now join us in our General Synod. We've been consulting with folk around accessibility for those who have different disabilities, trying to, again, like be as widely accessible as we can be using these different technologies and formats. So again, I've been so thrilled. I've learned a lot along the way, things that I didn't think I knew. I'm learning now as we're going. And even with our intentionality, right, we recognize that we don't always get it right. And this striving, this commitment to continue to learn and grow and more widely be accessible to all of those who would want to come and experience God's goodness in the ways that we are able to offer it. That has been just a life-giving part of this process for me, just how very seriously and intentionally we're doing that. So yeah, I'm like I said, I'm super geeked, and I'm excited to like get to witness this with you all, and hear from y'all, how you experience it, how it lands in your spirit, and getting to continue to share this beyond General Synod as well. And like we have this like captured moment that we have collectively done together, but that we can continue to share beyond this 2021.
Speaking of captured moments, now both you and Jaquan are acting as liturgists at some different points in services. How was that? Because you had to do a piece of it. You couldn't do like it wasn't a coherent service. You had to do a piece of it. And both of the services that you're working with are quite complex. And in both of your cases, you actually are in dialogue with someone else, literally doing sections of dialogue while you're trying to film your parts. So I'm so curious. I mean, I've been kind of directing and seeing and all these kinds of things, and just kind of monitoring and seeing it all come in and getting the word that it's in. But what was that like? I mean, we all know it's very difficult to maintain. We've been talking about presence, and how are we going to invite people to be present? How are we going to try to create presence? And, you know, what was it like for you to be present and all of that? I would love to get some reflection from both of you.
Yes, I can start. I think this entire process has been one of collaboration, intense collaboration, to foster this presence that you're talking about, Tracy. I think I entered in, as the seminarian, right? And someone who really wanted to, as Piwa said, to take in all that was offered me in this opportunity to learn and to grow. But was quickly, met with the agency and the authority to, share what was on my heart and on my mind, right? And to kind of put into practice kind of what I maybe have been theorizing about in classroom settings. And so I think for me, to be working with this beloved team and to be able to orchestrate, a bulletin, a liturgy, but then to then step into the liturgist role was pretty incredible. I think that for me, it felt very empowering and then also risky, which I think are two things that the church and worship ought to be, in the sense of being able to be in relationship to build rapport and practice for what it means to create a conversation and to invite folks in to worship with you and to, through a screen, right, or through video, offer warmth. That is a practice in of itself. And I think that this only works when you're able to be in community and have the kind of, to lean into the spirit, right, when you're recording, so that when it all comes together, it's like, wow, we were, miles apart, but we are actually in this together. And I think that's been a really beautiful thing, and being able to be on this team and creating our Worship for Synod, to be able to expose many to places and spaces they may not be able to reach, but to bring it to them, right, and to their spaces of comfort. And to, challenge each of us to, be a little risky, but also to know that we are leaning into beautiful and beloved community as we do so.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I was terrified, and maybe I am still a little bit, unlike Tracy, who's used to being on, this side of the camera, in amazing ways, that's not usually like where I hang out. So I was extremely terrified, and Sue, thankfully, has been very gracious, in fielding some of my anxieties through text and email and messengers and all sorts of different kinds of technology as we're doing this work, But I have to say, in the moment of actually coming to record after, Sue was very gracious with her words of encouragement, it took me a second to realize just how amazing this moment, we live in the future, right? So when we began writing, I was in Michigan, inspired by the plants and the foliage of Michigan. And by the time I was recording, I'm here in Georgia right now. And it's a different set of trees and plants that I have down here, and how that even contributed, right, to, just the different locations and places and ways in which, even though we're physically distanced, there's so much connectivity happening here, so even my 2 locations, and Sue where she is, and the tapestry from one location made by creatives and the stole made from another group of folk, and just knowing that even just my portions of the service was located in several different states, and then on top of that, the different pieces of the service being recorded and contributed, by people in other places, it often just makes me marvel, just how this is even possible, these technologies that we have to use that allow us, to do this sacred work. So in the moment of recording, it actually hit me. I was like, wow, this is such a sacred and holy moment that it actually took away some of my anxieties. And thankfully, some of the bloopers hopefully are not too bad, but just even engaging that, I wasn't as stressed out about that part as much as as just realizing, that this is a historic moment that we're doing together, and that my one small piece is not all of it. And yet it helps make all of it whole, right? And so that, really kind of leaning into that wisdom, and again, the words that Sue has shared with me, and just knowing that, all these pieces were happening at the same time, helped ease my calm. And hopefully, again, as y'all experience the service, that you might also feel that connectivity and realizing just how widely spread, all the different pieces that are coming into this work, like really is helping bring us together, even when we can't physically.
Yeah, I totally agree. I want to remind everybody too that's watching. We worked really hard because it was really of great concern too that we all needed to be grounded in a unified way. That these services very much are unified, and so as much as we're talking about all these things, these services are a very integrated, cohesive experience. But even at the beginning, I remember we started with our retreats, and we were brought into these embodied kind of rituals to bring us into our bodies and our experience, before we even started, into our presence. And then Sue's been working really hard to think about how we help people at home, be present in their homes, and how, because the computer screen and the TV screen sometimes doesn't help us be present. And so, Sue, can you talk about kind of the work you're doing around just thinking about expanding our concept of virtual worship, or remote worship maybe is even a better word than virtual worship, remote worship, and some of the tools and resources that are going to be available to people prior to Synod and after Synod?
Yes. I've been working with two artists. One is a fabric artist, Christine Ng, and her daughter, Jenny Ng, who are responsible for creating the stoles for our worship leaders at this Synod. But we also invited them to create a backdrop for the worship leaders that really grew, if you will pardon the pun, grew out of our tree imagery and root imagery. So you got a glimpse of Piwa in our opening video there, sitting in front of these banners. But then we invited them to create a smaller, kind of a mini altar cloth that can fit on a desk, can fit on your coffee table. It's related in color and in a kind of variation of style to the banner that you'll see with the worship leaders. And it will function, we hope, as the centerpiece of altars that each individual or household will create for General Synod worship. Then the other artist that we've been working with is Rebecca Davies of Remark Glass, which is a women-run business of artisans who do hand-blown glass from recycled bottles. And so they are creating communion sets, chalices and patens, small, again, for a household or an individual's use, but just in these beautiful colors, again, related to the trees and the roots and the water and so on. So with those two pieces as really centerpieces, we'll invite people with each service to gather the elements that are suggested in the service. For example, in the second service, there will be a water ritual. So the bowl and the pitcher and the towel and the other possibilities. We'll have that information out in advance so that people can prepare. And then also just to use their own imaginations and their own setting to create whatever is meaningful to them, so that in location after location, something beautiful, connected with others, but also individual is being created. So, and you'll be able to order these things through UCC resources, the altar cloth and the glass, and hopefully that will be up soon.
Yeah, so that they'll arrive prior to
Yes.
General Synod, and then of course people will be able to continue to order them if they wish through Synod. We're still finalizing all the locations. There will be a unified General Synod website, where one location where people will go and be able to find the worship services when they're streaming, and it will be high 4K, high quality streaming, because we're doing really just amazing film work and audio work. The artistry is just amazing all the way across, but we're also going to have ASL on all of the worship services in addition to captions, and that's really exciting to work with the ASL team. We're learning a lot. We've been working with disabilities ministries representatives and having consultations with them and learning so much, and also just striving to keep our commitments. That's been a big part of our journey, is having these core conversations of what does it mean to be creating these worship services and maintain our commitments to anti-racism and maintain our commitments to decolonization. And even, for example, our commitment to land acknowledgement as the bare minimum. Well, what does that mean when we're in this virtual setting? And so we've been working with Native peoples through our siblings at First Church Billings, and kind of pushed beyond, well, what does it just mean to be Native in the context of our themes, Native and grounded in this land, Native and resilient, Native and resurrecting, Native, these are the sub-themes that have kind of arisen from rooted and grounded in love. And we have then Native openings for all of our worship services that have been co-created. But these have been kind of expansive and collaborative and challenging, but beautiful processes in the extraordinary circumstances that the pandemic has given us. So do you all have any, I would love to hear, Piwa kind of gave a little bit of a spiel, but Sue, Jaquan, I would love to hear kind of the core questions you brought to the process, the planning process. And then maybe we can open it up to some Q&A.
I'll jump in. This planning process has been really eye-opening for me, insofar as I have done General Synod worship planning over the years. And in some ways, this was very much like that. In other ways, this was completely new. But I think in one way, in years gone by, we have had teams of people who really worked hard on coming together and a meeting of the minds and the hearts, so that we could articulate together a vision and then begin to have that vision take shape in individual services. So in that regard, Tracy has done a great job, I think, in pulling us together and giving us, helping us articulate a theological foundation for this, and then freeing us up to enter into some creative relationships and seeing where it would take us. So, But then after that, the pieces that involve the technical, it's just been amazing to me to see the different individual parts of a service come together. And we still don't know what the end will be, but it seems to me that this is a kind of way of getting at a real constructive theology process, because the different elements of the service, the way they're going to come together, has all been very carefully prepared and really, down to the nanosecond. And yet, when we begin them, when everyone is gathered, it's like, we give it over to the Spirit, and something new is going to happen, and it's going to be more than we can ask or imagine. So I'm just very excited about this. We're still in the middle of the process, but I have great hope and confidence going forward.
Yeah, if I can just echo some of that with just how we are remaining in the middle as we create the liturgies and worship formations for General Synod. One area in which I kind of brought to the table, and I feel like I had an idea of what this was in the fall, and it has, for the better, right, changed even now as I reflect on it in April. But that's around like, what does it mean to create trauma-informed liturgy, right? And I think it goes back to kind of where we started. It's a way for us to hold on to our covenants. It's a way for us to maintain our commitment to one another. I think that it is an approach, right, to offer radical welcome and affirmation. And I think in this process, it's been one that is compassionate, that is experimental and artistic, as you've heard from my dear colleagues sharing how fabric and music and the like are being brought together. And it's prayerfully created, right? We are, as Sue mentioned, leaning into the Spirit. I think that this trauma-informed approach, it really does grant us frameworks to grant access to varying agencies and mental health conditions and ways of engagements, right? And learning styles and accessibility styles, which is really crucial. I think it, for me, feels like a way to offer an ethic of care and of love. For us, that is inspired by resilience, kind of a sneak peek into what the midweek service will be themed around. As we plan and begin to move onward and move forward. I think that this has been a really amazing process of creating liturgies that are both coming from the people, like from the United Church of Christ, from all of us, and also for all of us, for the collective. And I think that this work and this process of dialogue is what makes this work holy and sacred for sure. As we, realize that even as we hold our historical and present traumas and crises, we also realize the humanity and the grace and the complexities in that, as we seek to be in communion with one another and as we seek to be in communion with God rooted in our Creator. So I definitely feel that ever present from retreat into now, and then I'm so excited how that continues to unfold this summer and beyond.
Amen. Well said. We have a few questions that we can respond to, and we can continue to respond to one another if further things are welling up in you that you just want to share in this context. So logistically, what platforms will the worship be offered on? Will it be public because you have to register for Synod? I believe that the worship will be public and, open to all. The Synod, General Synod will have a unified website and portal. I believe that the worship will be on a high definition streaming platform, such as Vimeo or YouTube, streamed to that platform. So right now it's generalsynod.org. I believe that that's where it will be streamed to. So generalsynod.org, where you register, I think that that's where it will you will be able to find it. As far as where it will live forever on the internet, it probably will be archived on the UCC YouTube channel, but I do not know all of those things for sure. All of the, as far as creating local church resources, we have been thinking about that all along the way. And we actually, because producing worship for the virtual setting necessitates producing things at such a high quality level, we've been working with all these amazing artists. We have quite a bit of content. And so we actually are seeking to create some kind of like exclusive digital content and package it. If you recall, because I'm a big fan of Tuesdays and Thursday digital programming for the UCC, I had the opportunity to release an EP back in the fall, and I released 5 songs that were packaged along with sheet music and lyric videos and things for digital programming. We actually have a package of songs that we hope to do that with, for songs that have been produced for the worship services, but that will be packaged in a slightly different way than will appear in the worship services, that are specifically with the local churches in mind, that we might use as kind of a fundraiser to support the worship ministry of General Synod, which is also a significant undertaking financially. And so we are actively fundraising for General Synod, and there's a philanthropy team. And so we're also thinking about creative ways for that to happen. But then once we have the worship services, each different segment, the confession, the call and response, the prayers and the pastoral things, we've asked the video editor and all of the creative team and pieces to have in mind that we might be able to package that in a way that would be usable resources for our local churches, and we anticipate that it will be. And so we have all that in mind, and we're getting licensing and such for that down the road, which is really exciting, because this is we've never produced it in this way, and the content that we're creating is stunning and historic. And Piwa mentioned it, that we're kind of like capturing these things, and what I have come to see as so much of our call in this work is liturgical documentation. And so I think about what we are creating now for this moment, but also for when our churches gather in sanctuaries 20 years from now and have the joy of seeing what God was doing among us in 2021. And so with that, I want to invite our dear friend, Natalia Cerna, to come on board. I'll give her time. She might have just been like leaning back and listening. But Natalia, you might have come to know, she's a dear friend of the United Church of Christ. She has contributed to so many of our programs, from National Youth Event to the Christmas pageant. And she embodies so much of what our church believes in creating a just and beautiful world for all. And she lives and works from Hermosillo, Mexico. Before I turn it over, I just want to say thank you, Piwa, thank you, Jaquan, thank you, Sue, and I so look forward to continuing to work together all the way to General Synod. Wasn't that such an awesome preview? Does it get you so excited to worship? So I'll see you very soon. And I'm just going to invite Natalia to share about the theme of Synod and what it spoke to you. And go ahead and just share, go ahead and read maybe the first verse of your song for people. We're not going to, we're going to give people a teaser. Natalia actually just recorded it, and we have an unmastered mix to share with you, but we're not going to show the video. We're going to invite people just to listen and reflect as we close out the webinar, but please stay on, because we have information about upcoming events after this beautiful song. So with that, Natalia.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm so grateful to have been invited. I love, I love to think that I could write a song and that it will be used in the church is like such a nourishing thing. It's so wonderful. And when I heard about the theme of rooted in your love, I think, what I got was the first sentence of the song that says, I know that it's enough to be rooted in your love, to be rooted in your deep, deep love. And I think I had that on my heart because, to be Christian is to assume such an enormous responsibility, to think that God believes that we can actually make the world a better place, and then to go out there and to try and make the world a better place and realize that it's really hard. And sometimes you try and it just doesn't turn out like you think it will, and it doesn't matter how hard you try. And so I think in those moments when you get hit hard with like how unjust the world is, you have to just go back and say, it's enough, it's enough to be rooted in your love, it's enough to be here with you. And you just sometimes you have to let go of those expectations. And then, I think the whole song really points to what the anthem center of it is, which says, we are one family, everyone, one family on this earth. And, I think that's what we're aiming for, is just we want everybody to come back home to the same table, not necessarily to the same religion, but we want everyone to come home to the same table. We want to be all at the same table. Yeah, I mean, it's mostly a spontaneous process, for me as a person living in Mexico and trying to share my home with folks that are asking for refugee status, and being in the mess of it all just brings sometimes and I think for everybody, wherever you are, there's like a sense sometimes of like real exhaustion, just, going back home in the heart and being like, it's okay. It's okay to just be here with you. And, I did what I could do, and it's in your hands, God. It's on you. We're doing our part, and the rest is just, it's your world. And we're going to have to trust that you're going to take care of it.
And now we have some beautiful music. Thank you so much, Natalia.
Thank you.
I know that it's enough to be rooted in your love, to be rooted in your deep, deep love. Yo sé dentro de mí que tú siempre estás aquí, que yo vivo firme, firme estoy en ti. I know that I can stand and I can fight and make the world a better place tonight. Love life. Yo sé que con amor puedo vencer. No existe oscuridad a que temer. Love life. I know that it's enough to be rooted in your love, to be rooted in your deep, deep love. Lo sé dentro de mí, que tú siempre estás aquí, que yo vivo firme, firme estoy en ti. I know that when the day comes to an end, I rest in the goodness of your care. Love life. Yo sé que cuidas de todo mi ser, que crees en todo lo que puedo hacer. Love life. We are one family, everyone family. Yeah. And this earth, we are one family, everyone family. Yeah. This earth, we are one family, everyone family. Yeah. This earth, we are one family, everyone family. Yeah. This earth, I know that it's enough to be rooted in your love, to be rooted in your deep, deep love. Lo sé dentro de mí, que tú siempre estás aquí, que yo vivo firme, firme estoy en ti. Que yo vivo firme, firme estoy en ti.
Siblings and sisters and brothers, if this conversation has moved you, if you have something to hold on to and carry you from this day into your days, please consider donating towards the annual fund of the United Church of Christ by texting UCC to 41444. Also, I want to let you know about a few things upcoming. The first is tomorrow in a conversation with Wednesdays for the World about spiritualities and powers. And then again on Thursday, this conversation will continue in Getting Rooted Part 2, which will feel a bit more like worship. We're going into the theologies and the spirit of it, and you'll get some tastes of that. And then a week from Thursday, Tuesday next, we'll talk about the state of refugees, migrants, and asylum seekers. So from here into whatever this may bring, whatever decisions we learn, whatever outcomes we hold, know that we are in deep prayer for each other, for the church, for the people within it, and the communities we love and serve, and that we will continue to work together towards a just world for all people. Having said that, if you can breathe with me and close out in prayer, let's breathe. Breathe in love and God. We breathe out all that stands between us and that love. We breathe in a hope for a future where all gods are beloved, and the systems of oppression that continue to tell us one thing instead of another. God, hold us to our faith. Help us to be journeying alongside our neighbors. Help us to worship rooted from the places we come, aware clearly of all that has come into this moment, and looking together outward towards all that is to come in the world you call us into co-creating. Journey with us. Be with us, God. Amen.
Siblings in Christ, if this conversation has moved you, if what's been offered here has helped enhance your ministry or your soul, please consider donating towards the annual fund of the United Church of Christ by texting UCC to 41444. Your support will help programs like this in the essential work of the United Church of Christ. Thank you for your support. Be blessed as you continue your day. Know that you are not alone, and we are holding you in prayer. Amen.